In 1942, the Army opened Fort Hood several miles west of the Meridian Highway in Bell and Cooeel counties, near Belton. During the war years, the post consisted of largely temporary construction and open land for tank destroyer training, but in subsequent decades it would grow into one of the largest military installations in the world. In urban settings, the Meridian Highway and the amount of traffic along it contributed to greater decentralized and linear patterns of commercial development, which became more common during that period. Land along the outskirts of cities attracted owners and operators of the growing numbers of tourist courts, gas stations, and auto-friendly restaurants that greeted motorists entering urban areas via the Meridian and other highways. In contrast to commercial development in city centers, this new auto-oriented development was much more dispersed and provided more room for customers and patrons to park and service their vehicles. Among the most successful and innovative entrepreneurs whose livelihood was directly linked to the automobile and commercial development of the period was Edgar Lee Torrance of Waco. In 1929, he conceived the idea of motel chains of similar forms that would be recognizable to the traveling public. His Alamo Plaza Hotel courts on E. Elm Street in East Waco on or near the Meridian Highway evoked the sense of the Alamo with its use of a mission-style parapet. During the Great Depression, he opened similar operations through Texas and the South and is credited as a pioneer in the lodging industry. Post-war road expansion, 1945 to 1956, historic context. During the post-World War II period, the Texas Highway Department made significant plans for interregional travel on or near the Meridian Highway corridor, particularly Austin and San Antonio. Just as in Fort Worth and Dallas, State Highway engineer DeWitt C. Greer, Bartlett, Georgetown, Manor, and Austin. The route that had left Fort Worth and gone to Waco by way of Meridian, and the route that left Temple and went to Austin by way of Taylor, became loops. In 1921, the Commission designated parts of SH2 as elements in the major state highway system. On the main line, those parts embraced the segments from Burkburnett to Burleson, from Waco to Temple, and from a point several miles north of Austin to Laredo. Segments to A from Burleson to Waco and to C from Temple to its intersection with SH to north of Austin also were parts of the system.
On the branch between Waco
and Galveston, now called the Gulf to Colorado branch, the system included Waco to Bremen and Bryan to Galveston. That branch was excluded from the list of primary roads of the Federal Aid Highway System as defined by the Commission on November 24, 1924. As with the Bankhead and other
long-distance highways,
some parts of the Meridian proved difficult to finance. Good roads advocates found it particularly
necessary to focus their
attentions on some of the counties between San Antonio and Laredo, describing the segment between Frio and LaSalle counties as the only part of the Meridian Highway that had not been financed.
Talk in 1921
about extension of the road across the border into northern Mexico probably helped spur enthusiasm on the Texas side, and good roads advocates such as McNaughton helped keep construction on the Meridian before the public, meeting with Mexican officials and Governor Neff, and with officials from the other states through which the Meridian passed. American representatives toured the proposed route in Mexico as well. Bonds in the southwest Texas segment passed in 1921 so that road work could begin. Considerable work had been done on the Gulf Division between McLennan and Galveston counties as well. There, distances between towns had been shortened by eliminating turns. Bridges had been widened, and communities such as Waco, Navasota, and Houston
had built tourist camps.
Travelers on the Gulf Division could expect to drive over asphalt, gravel, shell, and earth roads. In contrast, drivers in Wichita County, which funded more durable roads that could hold up to oil field traffic, could enjoy an 18-foot wide concrete highway and a shortened route between Wichita Falls and Burkburnett near the Oklahoma border. By the end of 1922, work to erect signs on the main route of the Meridian also had progressed. Businessmen understood the value of the signs as good guides for tourists, and some work marking the highway through the Bosque River Valley near Waco and in the vicinity of Marlin had already occurred by 1922. The San Antonio to Laredo portion was real good if you not ask no questions. Along the route, the association aims to erect markers at least as frequently as every mile on rural highways and installed 2 to 3 markers per block in the cities. The association also planned to publish a tourists directory with write-ups of cities and businesses that would bring thousands of tourists to cities like Belton. That guide was published in early 1923, and boosters hoped that its distribution throughout the United States would bring much favorable publicity to Texas. The Texas Highway Commission approved funding for multiple projects on the Meridian Highway in the early to mid-1920s, but there were differences between the Commission and the Meridian Road Association about what constituted the route, or even the name. In December 1923, for example, the Commission described the route as passing through Ringgold, Boat, Decatur, Fort Worth, Burleson, Itasca, Hillsboro, Waco, Temple, Belton, Georgetown, Round Rock, Austin, San Marcos, New Braunfels, San Antonio, Pearsall, Poteau. That route was affirmed in both April 1924, when the Commission named SH2 as part of the preferred system of highways, and November 1924, when it was designated a primary road of the federal aid highway system. The Commission, from time to time, when pressured by highway associations, chose to rename the Meridian Highway. For example, in February 1922, the segment between San Antonio and Laredo became part of the Jefferson Davis National Highway. Several years later, the Commission designated SH2 from Laredo to the Red River the Patnath Highway, a change that must have been puzzling to travelers who had been following the official markers of the Meridian Highway that the association had installed along the main north-south route of the highway by early 1923. The Meridian Road Association, like other highway associations in the 1920s, tended to be expansive in its self-identified route. A major branch, for example, left the trunk at Wake and trended southeast to Houston and Galveston. One division went to Brownville, which also was terminus of King of Trails over SH12. Yet another branch in north-central Texas went by way of Claiborne and through the Bosque River Valley near Waco. In 1924, the Texas Highway Commission designated the main route of SH2 from the Texas-Oklahoma state line to Fort Worth, Hillsboro, Waco, Austin, San Antonio, and Laredo as a primary road in the federal aid highway system. No branch routes were included. Thereafter, the Meridian remained a high priority for funding because it was the only north-south running transcontinental highway that linked both Canada and Mexico. Additional value accrued to the route because of the work done in Mexico to create an international Pacific. Noted that Central Texas was generally in favor of routing an interstate along US 81. On September 25, 1945, voters passed a $5.7 million bond issue put forward by the San Antonio-Bexar County Planning Board to finance right-of-way purchases for an interregional highway. The interregional highway was to relieve traffic in the downtown core and link downtown San Antonio with the airport, provide safer travel facilities, increase property values, and spur housing development along the route. In February 1946, the city of Austin likewise began debating the merits of voter-approved bonds to purchase the 200-foot right-of-way that the federal government needed for the proposed interregional highway on US 81 through the city. As the project required widening the existing highway, the city needed to finance the purchase of adjacent property on several local roads. Austinites eventually voted to approve $950,000 in bonds for the new highway. As plans for the interstate highway continued to be developed, US 81 was designated as a Blue Star Memorial Highway from Fort Worth to Laredo in September 1947. By October 1948, the Texas Highway Department maintained that for Traffic lanes were needed on US 81 between San Antonio and Fort Worth. The department placed particular emphasis on the proposed work in San Antonio, where the expressway was eagerly anticipated and would link to other expressways carrying the traffic of US 90 Old Spanish Trail, Southern National Highway and US 87. The same article noted, however, that work on the section of the highway between Temple and Belton was postponed because of the inability to acquire the required right-of-way. In the fall of 1950, the route of US 81 was revised slightly to eliminate the alternate from south of Fort Worth into the city's downtown business core. Widening of the highway between San Antonio and Fort Worth was under commitment in April 1953 when US 81 was featured in a Texas Parade article. The Texas Highway Department proceeded with projects on segments of the highway in other counties, where work was deemed most crucial. At this time, most of the construction had been completed in Bayer, Travis, McLennan, Hill, and Bobby Mohammed.